Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our third conversation. We're committed to helping individuals stay engaged with the companies that they have supported and are trialing this in a number of different formats. Do let us know where we're doing a good job and how we might improve. Please send any ideas to conversations@PrimaryBid. Now, before we start, please do read the disclaimer that's posted on the screen. Specifically note that investing in securities involves a significant degree of risk and that this webinar does not include investment advice, guidance, or recommendations. Now, with that done, let's get straight into the conversation, which we intend to last approximately 1 hour. I'm thrilled to be joined this evening by Chokina, CEO of Cellular Goods, and Alexia Blake, Cellular's Head of Research and Development. Now, Cellular IPO'd in February last year, and the event was a clear indication of the growing power of retail investors. Over a short period of 3 days, individual investors built a book of demand measured in the tens of millions. It was a clear indication of how the process of capital raising has been irrevocably changed by technology, both in terms of the mechanics of the transaction and how the awareness of a fundraising can be amplified. Now, Cellular was unusual for 2 further reasons. It became the first consumer cannabinoid company to list in the UK, presenting itself as a pioneer, emphasizing the importance of science in its approach to product development. It was also a relatively young company in the context of public markets, floated in advance of its product launch and the generation of meaningful revenue. Perhaps the latter is consistent with a nascent but potentially exciting market. The cannabinoid sector has grown rapidly, and prohibition partners estimate that this year it will exceed 3 billion euros in value across Europe alone. There are few clear market leaders, and traditional consumer goods companies are largely absent. Of course, with the huge opportunity that is presented by the white space of a youthful and growing market can come uncertainty, including the legal boundaries of the industry as regulators develop a consistent approach and framework. I'm sure that Anna will touch on this and the temporary dislocations that it can bring. Despite being a young company, Cellular has recruited considerable wisdom and experience in Anna Chokina. Anna became CEO in December, having spent more than 20 years in senior roles in fast-moving consumer goods. Anna was previously the Vice President of Global Color Cosmetics, Global Face Care and Personal Care at Avon, where she successfully launched Avon's first ever lines of cannabidiol-based products for the personal care and skincare market. Prior to that, Anna was a general manager of L'Oréal Paris, led an $800 million snacks portfolio for PepsiCo, and spent a decade managing large portfolios for Procter & Gamble, both in the US and in the UK. Equally, Alexia Blake brings considerable expertise to the team. Leveraging her experience in the food industry, she began her career in the cannabis arena at MedRelief Corp, which became one of the largest global producers of legal cannabis before being acquired by Aurora. At Aurora, Alexia led the development of a global CBD portfolio for the health and wellness market before joining Levan Inc., a company focused on commercializing cannabinoid ingredients produced using biosynthesis for the health and beauty markets. Now, Alexia has produced Cellular's 2 white papers on cannabinoids, focusing first on their potential benefits and latterly on the improved sustainability credentials of lab-based manufacture. I hope you'll take 3 things away today. First, an understanding of the progress that Cellular Goods has made in prosecuting the strategy it presented at IPO and the evolution of the business under new leadership. Second, to benefit from Anna's insight around the broader process of marketing of consumer products, the nature of the consumer purchase funnel, and growth in brand value. Finally, Alexia is going to educate as she explores the science that sits right at the center of the cellular product range. After our two guests have presented, we'll hand it over for Q&A. As a reminder, you can post questions throughout the event using the chat box on your screen. Now, with that, enough from me. Let me turn to Anna Chokina, CEO of Cellular Goods. Anna, welcome.
Thanks very much, Nick. Hello, everyone. It's my pleasure to be here today and to talk to you about Cellular Goods and our strategy update. Before we start, and in a similar fashion to Nick, I would like to make a legal disclaimer that I'm going to be making some forward-looking statements as well as Alexia. And while those statements are true to our best knowledge right now to execute them, they should not be taken as a guaranteed action. Things can happen, we all know that, and some things that we intend to do or will do may not materialize. So just keep that in mind as we go through. Right, so to start with, I would like to remind everyone about the cannabinoids marketplace opportunity. In the UK alone, they say that the market is going to be at about £1 billion by 2025. This data is coming from the Centre of Medicinal Cannabis. And while globally, I think it's going to be even bigger at staggering $47 billion by 2028, as indicated by Vantage Market Research. So the opportunity is significant, and this category is also growing very. This all represents quite an attractive industry to invest in, and this is why we're having this discussion today. Cellular Goods as a company is very well placed to take advantage of these trends. We are a British premium wellness brand, and we exist to bring clarity and authority to the world of wellness. Wellness as a word can be seen quite fuzzy, right? You know, it's quite hard to define, unlike some other categories such as cars or food or drink or even beauty care. And so we see our role as a brand that will drive that clarity and authority. And we will do this through science-backed and efficacy-led products that are formulated based on lab-made cannabinoids. And we will do that to empower our customers to feel better, look better, and function better. So that's who we are and why we exist. It's also worth to mention that we see ourselves as quite an ethical company, and the ESG principles are very close to our heart. We formulate our products in a way that is cruelty-free. The products are vegan. They're also very efficacious, and you may say, okay, this is all very well, but there are tens and thousands of the other brands on the market who have been here before you. How are you different to the other cannabinoid-based companies? And I'm happy to talk about it because they're very different on many layers. So we're going to start from positioning of the company. We are a wellness brand versus the vast majority of our competitors. They are either health or beauty. And why is this important? This is important because wellness has emerged as one of the fastest growing and the hottest categories post-pandemic. During the pandemic, consumers started to realize that health and beauty, they're so interconnected. And so they take a holistic view about them. It's no longer separate. And from that standpoint, I think Cellular Goods is very well placed to take advantage of this growing consumer demand. We are also different in terms of the origin of our key ingredient, and that is cannabinoid. While 99% of the brands on the market use plant-based ingredients, we consciously focus on lab-made cannabinoids. And this is important for many reasons. Most importantly, because it allows us to provide very efficacious products, consistently efficacious products. There is a data point I'm sharing on the slide here, and it also comes from the Center for Medicinal Cannabis. What this company had done back in 2019, they took about 35 different CBD oils from the market, and they sent them to the independent lab. And what came out was just very surprising and unexpected. Only 38% of those studied products actually were within 10% of the claimed amount of CBD in them. Just think about it. From all of the products, only 38 were within plus or minus 10% of the claimed amount of CBD. And what this means, it means basically you can't rely on the products to deliver the benefits they claim they deliver. One batch can be efficacious, the other one can be not, because of the other additives that end up in that formula. And from the consumer standpoint, what it also means is that there have been lots of disappointed customers. They would buy a product and then be disappointed because it doesn't deliver. So such inconsistency comes from the fact that the ingredient was plant-derived. And Alexia is going to talk in her section about how this is important and why this is different for the synthetic brands versus the plant-derived brands. Another important element in how we're different is that us having the biosynthesized ingredients also is a much more sustainable way of growing to meet the demand of this growing industry. Lab-made cannabinoids are purer, greener, and cleaner, much more purer, cleaner, and cleaner. And finally, if you look at our communication, we are much more and science-based in terms of the claims we make, which helps customers build trust and understand what the products do. Believe it or not, customers don't look to buy cannabinoids. They don't want to buy cannabis or CBD. They buy benefits that these cannabinoids can bring. They buy anti-aging properties of our skincare products, or they buy mood-enhancing properties of our ingestibles. So this is what they buy, and the ingredient serves. This is very important, actually, to unlock the consumer demand for this market. Right. So let's see the road we traveled. From February 21, when we went public with the IPO that Nick talked about, we hit quite a few significant milestones in our view. So in December 21, the company launched 5 products on its website via soft launch. That's also when I joined. And upon me joining, I put a lot of effort to create the infrastructure to allow the company to take advantage of all of the market trends, but also of the potential that we have in this marketplace. So that manifested itself in the first publication of our proprietary research, what we call white paper, and that happened in February. We also then extended the distribution of our products to Amazon, and then that was followed in March by the introduction of our breakthrough 6th product, face serum, the only serum in the UK with cannabigerol, CBG, and unique anti-aging properties. And we have started also our broad-scale marketing campaign. So in just 1 year since the IPO, I think quite a lot of things happened, and I think we should be pleased with the progress we've made. Another thing we're pleased about is that our products have landed very, very well with the customers. It's one thing for us to know how different and amazing they are, but very different to hear it from our customers. And it's great to see that across all reviews platforms, we have consistently high scores. So here on this slide, you can see the Trustpilot reviews, and we're at 4.7 out of 5 in this independent reviews platform. You may ask, why do you guys have separate reviews in Amazon, on Trustpilot, on your own e-com? This is because all of the providers of the reviews, they're quite want to share their reviews with anyone else, and they insist that they are only available on their platforms. So unfortunately, no matter how hard we try, we can't combine them into one source. and we have to be using different sources of the customer reviews. But regardless of the source, we have consistently high scores, and that's definitely to cherish. Let's talk more about the research and science. Just now, we have been consistently investing in research and development, and also to share with you our joy that this is paying off for us. So the white paper with benefits and cannabidiol in skin in anti-aging, showing that the benefits that these ingredients can unlock can rival those of the most well-known and potent ingredients today, such as retinol and vitamin C. In fact, on some parameters, these cannabinoids can be even more powerful, and they don't have the side effects the other anti-aging ingredients do. So that all of a sudden opened the door for us from just cannabinoids market into the very lucrative anti-aging skincare market worth $47.8 billion globally. And that data is from the global industry analysts from 2021. That's definitely something to think about because no longer we are saying we can compete just in the cannabidiol and cannabinoids market, right? All of a sudden, you're opening the door to be competing with the most powerful anti-aging treatments. And I'm hugely excited about it. With my 20-some years in consumer goods, I can tell you this is only the second time I'm seeing an ingredient show so much promise. Only second time. I'm hugely excited about it. Yeah, so that's about that. In terms of our marketing efforts, I hope some of you who are London-based or Manchester-based had seen the outdoor campaign that we had. We had amazing visibility that we were able to achieve. Here on the picture, you can see the very oversized site on Piccadilly in. So that was very visible. I think it was the biggest launch perhaps any of the cannabinoid brands have ever done. On this slide, you can also see the share of voice data. Share of voice is a term that's used in marketing to show how visible a brand was in terms of their advertising in a given period. So here the data is for Q1 2022, and you can see that despite us starting just 1 month before, just in March, we were able to achieve 46% share of voice. This is huge. Just to give you an indication, usually you would look for your share of voice to be in line with your market share. So if your brand, for instance, has 10% market share, they should advertise to be visible at about 10% of share of voice. Of course, when you're a startup and we're just starting, your turnover can never measure to the amount of investment you make. You have to kind of invest first and then wait for the turnover to come. But just to show the magnitude of our effort, I think it was very well done. We are recognized. We're also going to measure the effectiveness of our campaign in a couple of months when it ends to understand exactly what awareness we achieved. Overall, we are quite pleased with the visibility we were able to unlock. So that's all very well in terms of what happened in the past. What about the future, you may ask? So let me share with you our 5-year strategy. We are quite ambitious. We believe we can become the market-leading wellness brand that is powered by the science of cannabinoids. We are so in awe with what we see in data of how powerful cannabinoids can be to unlock wellness for humans, that we see it as our vision to be able to bring the world with us. They need to see it the way we see it, and that's exactly what we intend to do. Now, we have 4 strategies to get us there. The first one is around centering our product offering in 3 product verticals, or benefit spaces, we call them. The first one is Feel Better, and it's led by supplements. The second one is look better. It's led by skincare. And the third one is function better, and it's led by recovery products. So this is where we're going to play. This is our playground, and you expect to see a lot of activity from us in these three areas. The second strategies we employ to get to where we want to get to is we will continue to invest in education and in brand awareness. The reason we're going to do it is because I think the industry itself demands for somebody to explain what these ingredients do. It's not very intuitive. There is a lot of misconception about what cannabis and cannabinoids are, how they're different, how they're similar, what exactly is safe, what's not safe. And unless somebody explains it to the consumers, you can never see the demand to follow. So, you know, if we want to realize the demand, someone needs to explain it. And because no one was explaining it up until now, I think it's our role to do that. And awareness, yes, we will have to invest in awareness. Without awareness, there is no purchase. Our third strategy has to do with it's our commercial strategy. We have started as a direct-to-consumer brand, and we still are a direct-to-consumer brand. We see ourselves in the future as an omni-channel brand. We want to make sure that our customers have seamless experience, no matter where they shop. If they like shopping in bricks and mortar stores, we will be there. If they like shopping in line, we're going to be online, but we will provide a seamless experience for them so that have experience of Cellular Goods, no matter our e-com or third-party e-com or a bricks and mortar store. From the geographical standpoint, we are starting with the UK, and we are proudly a British brand. However, we see ourselves expand as quickly as year 2 and into US, Canada, Australia, and rest of the world as of year 3 onwards. Just to show that, you know, the strategies we have, they are not just on paper, and the team is living and breathing them, and we are putting things in place to get them. So what I'm sharing here on the screen is a very sort of simplified laydown of our innovation plan. And the point here is to show you very strong cadence, competitive cadence across all of our pillars: feel better, look better, and function better. These are very different categories, and competitive cadence is a term we use to show the pulse of innovation needed to be competitive. This pulse is different for supplements versus skincare versus recovery products. Skincare perhaps is the most innovation-hungry category because it sits in beauty care, and beauty care is innovation-hungry category. So we are putting things in place to make sure that we are competitive, to make sure we're launching products at the right times. For instance, for skincare, that would mean definitely across September, October, and definitely across February, March. Those are the 2 important windows. For recovery, this definitely means January, February, after New Year. For supplements, it's more even, doesn't have to be that seasonal. But we are putting things in place to ensure that we are thinking about our launch plan in a holistic way. That being said, I just want to make sure everybody understands what you see on this slide is not set in stone. By its nature, a launch plan is something that constantly moves, subject to many external factors. And we as a team constantly evaluate that to make sure that what we bring to the market is A, meaningful, 2, provides additional revenue opportunity for us, and number 3, it's also very competitive. So from that standpoint, please don't take this as a commitment to launch something in a given period of time. Launch plans always move, and this one will move too. Right. Another principle I talked on the strategy slide, and the strategy we have is to continue to invest in education and in awareness. And this is just to illustrate to you that we're going to invest in our research and to share it with the industry, in our attempt to further the understanding of the industry, of the customers, about what cannabinoids are, how they're different, and what they can do. So here on this slide, you can see the outcome of our second white paper. that explored the benefits, the environmental footprint, I would say, of cannabinoids produced using synthesis, and plant-grown ones. And I think, for me, as somebody who's just joined recently this company, when I saw this data, I was in awe. Did you know that lab-made cannabinoids generate 98% less emissions, CO2 emissions? They use 99% less water and produce 99%, almost 100% less waste. This is just mind-blowing data. I think anyone who would look at it would not then ever want to use plant-grown cannabinoids, but it's just the awareness of this is so low right now, and we in Cellular are starting to pave the way for the companies and for the industry to develop in the right direction. Alexia is going to refer back to this white paper, and we'll share with you why exactly we can achieve such an amazingly low environmental footprint with lab-made cannabinoids compared to the plant-grown ones. Now, we will continue to invest in marketing. Yeah, that's also one of the strategies we have. And why we're going to continue to do that? Perhaps some boring theoretical data point here, but this is what is called consumer purchase funnel. It basically talks about the fact that before any customer will make a purchase, you will have to make them aware. And once you make them aware, you in their consideration set. So on average, you can expect from, say, 100% of people are aware of your products. Only about 20% will go on to consider your products for purchase. And from this 20, only 15 will go on to buy. So that means 3% of the original 100%, those who are aware. And this data, by the way, is for more mass products. So the more expensive you go, like for Chanel or Christian Dior, I think instead of 15, you're going to be looking more at like 3-5%. So their total conversion into purchase is going to be close to 0.5 from the original 100% who are aware. So, but it's inevitable. If you want to make a purchase, if you want to sell your product, you have to invest into awareness. And this is what have been. We'll continue that push again at the end of the year, closer to Christmas. We also invest in consideration, and that is done via using help of influencers. We had quite a heavy push with influencers. We started with Condé Nast. They are our partners now, both GQ and Vogue. They're very influential, and they're endorsing our products, and that helps to move our brand from awareness into consideration. So you can expect more from us on this. And yes, we will pursue distribution opportunities. I talked about it. We see ourselves as serving our customers, making sure that they have seamless experience of our products. We're just starting. Keep in mind, we were born and we just launched in December, and we probably haven't even launched yet, because we still have very few products where we're making our first steps. But you can expect us to become a visible and a high-performing brand sometime, available in bricks and mortar and available across the other distribution channels. So just to sum up, the market opportunity remains strong. I hope you agree with that. We believe Cellular Goods is uniquely placed to take advantage of this opportunity. In the UK alone, 6 million people have already tried CBD products, and 1.2 million went on to use them regularly. This is a lot of people, but it doesn't show any signs of saturation. Based on the same resource, Center for Medicinal Cannabis, they report that the market has been growing double digits in the last 3 years, and there is no sign of saturation. Yet there is no one leader that has emerged in consumer goods. So that's why we believe we are uniquely placed. I would like to use this opportunity also to remind that we still remain the only publicly listed consumer goods company trading with cannabinoids. So if you would like to take advantage of this industry, you're kind of stuck with us in some way. I also would like to address probably an elephant in the room on this slide before I pass on to our head of research and development, Alexia. So last week we had to put the RNS in the system about suspension of products. This was done the same day we've been approached by trading standards about it. And we are disappointed about that decision. Our products are absolutely safe and they are on the FSA list. They're just on that list under a different name. So we have been in contact with the FSA to clarify the position. We will continue to do that. Meanwhile, being the compliant and law-abiding citizens, we have to stop trading until we are told otherwise. So with that, I'm going to finish and I'm going to pass on to our head of product research and development, Alexia, who's going to tell you more about the science in our products, behind our products. And I hope you would agree after that we are unique and we are very powerful. Alexia, over to you.
Thank you, Anna. And hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us this evening. My name is Alexia Blake, and I'm the Director of Product Development and Research at Cellular Goods. I'm very happy to have this opportunity to speak about the exciting science and the potential of lab-made cannabinoids, which from the work we've done over or since our listing have just continuously emerged as highly efficacious, but also sustainable ingredients for cannabinoid consumer products. So for the purposes of today's webinar, I'm going to share 3 key insights that we've gained over the last year. And these are really insights that we believe speak to the promise of these fascinating ingredients. But before we get into that, I thought it might be helpful if we kick things off with a quick Cannabinoids 101, starting with the question we get all the time at Cellular Goods, which is, what exactly are cannabinoids? The short answer is that cannabinoids are a group of compounds most commonly produced by a plant species known as Cannabis sativa L. Hemp plants and cannabis plants are 2 varieties of this plant species, very much in the same way that Gala and Granny Smith are 2 varieties of apples. One of the main differences, however, between hemp and cannabis is that hemp plants tend to favor the production or produce more of a cannabinoid called cannabidiol, which is abbreviated as CBD. And I'm sure it's a cannabinoid that many of you have at least heard of at one point over the last few years. Whereas cannabis plants, on the other hand, they tend to produce more THC, which stands for tetrahydrocannabinol. Now, THC is a psychoactive substance, and as a result, it is also considered to be a controlled substance in the UK and many other parts of the world. And that means essentially that certain licenses are required to do any kind of development or testing or research with THC. With Cellular Goods being a consumer brand, the psychoactive cannabinoid space and the licensed cannabinoid space isn't really an area that we're playing in. Now, where things get interesting is that apart from producing CBD and THC, hemp and cannabis plants also produce over 100 other minor cannabinoids. We call them minor because they're present in plant material at concentrations well below 1%, which is usually in a range that we also consider to be trace quantities if they're barely there. Some examples of minor cannabinoids include cannabichromene acid, or CBCA, which you'll see at the bottom of the slide here. CBCA is a precursor to another minor cannabinoid called cannabichromene. These are fairly new cannabinoids, so much of the research that's currently ongoing for these and other minor cannabinoids is primarily focused on understanding some of the fundamental properties and potential benefits of these newer cannabinoids. Now, apart from these minors, we also find cannabigerolic acid, or CBGA, which is on the left side of this slide. We find CBGA in both hemp and cannabis plants, and CBGA is interesting for 2 reasons. The first of which is that CBGA is a precursor to another cannabinoid called cannabigerol, which is abbreviated as CBG. And CBG, as Anna mentioned, is the hero ingredient in our current skincare offerings. But the other reason why CBGA is so interesting is because it's actually present in plant material in higher concentrations during the start of the growing cycle, so when plants are considered to be young. But over time, those concentrations of CBGA diminish as the plant uses that CBGA to produce many of the other cannabinoids that we just discussed. So taking a step back from all of this, it's admittedly pretty cool that a plant could develop in such a way that would allow it to produce such a diverse range of compounds. That said, something we learned early on is that not all cannabinoids are created equally. Just like we as consumers, when shopping for supplements or shopping for produce, may pick up a product and ask ourselves, where did this product come from? How was it made? What's the ecological footprint of this product? Well, we asked ourselves these same questions when we started our search for the most sustainable, highest quality, and overall best source of cannabinoid ingredients. What we realized during this search process is that plant-derived cannabinoids, so those are cannabinoids extracted from plant material, that despite being what most of the rest of the industry is currently using in their products, these plant-derived cannabinoids just didn't really meet our standards. And that brings us to the first insight of the day, which is that the future of the cannabinoid industry and the future of cannabinoid products can be a clean and green future, thanks to non-plant-based lab-made cannabinoid production technologies like biosynthesis and chemical synthesis. As Anna mentioned, and for those of you who have been with us from the beginning, you may recall that we decided very early on that we would work exclusively with lab-made cannabinoids. Now, we made that decision for a number of reasons, the bottom line being that across many metrics, and we'll talk about a few of those today, lab-made cannabinoids are simply superior to their plant-derived counterparts. So starting with sustainability as the first metric and looking at the three graphs on the bottom of the slide, which were produced by our CBG supplier, Willow Biosciences, as part of an environmental performance comparison that they conducted on their specific biosynthetic process. We learned that the process Willow has developed produces significantly less carbon dioxide. It also uses much less water, and it produces significantly less biomass or waste compared to more traditional or conventional agricultural practices, such as indoor growing, outdoor growing, and greenhouse growing. Now, looking at these graphs and keeping in mind the numbers that Anna shared previously, when we look at biosynthesis relative to these other production methods, it's clear that we're not talking about a minor improvement or an incremental gain. This really is a game-changing technology that is providing significant benefits and significant improvement by way of sustainability. What this also means is that the CBG found in our products is produced in a much more sustainable way compared to plant-derived alternatives. But the benefits of biosynthesis don't stop there. Biosynthesis specifically is a very well-established technology. It's fermentation-based. It's been used for decades to produce a number of ingredients that we interact with on a regular basis. Things like vanilla, squalane, which is used in a lot of cosmetics, fragrances, flavors, even insulin. So we've had a lot of time to really understand how this technology works and the benefits that it can provide. And what we're seeing now that biosynthesis and even chemical synthesis are being applied to cannabinoid production is that these technologies are consistently overcoming many of the limitations associated with plant-derived cannabinoids. As one example, cannabinoids that are extracted from plant material grown outdoor are prone to contamination from things like pesticides or heavy metals, environmental pathogens or bacteria, and even THC, which can be difficult to completely remove from the extract that comes out of plant material. These are not prevalent issues with lab-made production technologies like biosynthesis or chemical synthesis. Another benefit of these technologies, and this was actually a sticking point for us at Cellular Goods, is that it's possible now to produce the same cannabinoid in the same concentration every single time. This enables something that we call batch consistency. And batch consistency is very important when we think about how we can maintain the quality, the efficacy, the safety, and also the compliance of a finished product. Because if the composition and the properties of the cannabinoid component are changing a little bit every single time, then the composition and the properties of the finished product will also be changing. And with our focus on those four things I just mentioned, efficacy, quality, safety, and compliance, that trade-off was just something we weren't comfortable making when evaluating plant-derived cannabinoid sources. The last benefit that I'll mention for today is that with biosynthesis and also chemical synthesis, we are now gaining access to the minor cannabinoids, which currently are either too expensive or too technically difficult to recover from plant material in any meaningful or commercial quantities, because again, they're barely there. They're present at very low concentrations. So as a result of these advancements, we're now ushering in a new era of cannabinoid research, development, and innovation, with CBG in many ways being just the tip of the iceberg. It's a very exciting time in the industry because of these advancements. And with Cellular Goods being at the forefront of this change, we are going to have more and more opportunities to really pioneer the development and also the adoption of novel cannabinoid products that are made possible by these sustainable and overall superior lab-based production methods. So leaving the minors aside for a moment, I want to go back to CBG and move on to the second insight of the day, which is that CBG is a fantastic skincare ingredient. As you've heard, we were the first and are still the only company in the UK to be offering skincare products made with lab-made CBG. And as a result of the efforts that went into bringing these products to market, we've learned a lot about how CBG works as a skincare ingredient. We knew going into the development process that CBG had a range of really interesting properties. And if you look at the graph on the left, you'll see some of these properties listed. Specifically from research done by other groups, including Willow Biosciences, we knew that CBG had a range of anti-inflammatory properties. We knew that it's a very good antioxidant, and we also knew that it has different antibacterial effects. What we wanted to understand, though, was how those properties translate into skincare benefits, because like Anna mentioned, at the end of the day for consumers, it's the benefits that they're interested in. So to answer some of these questions, we conducted a range of studies last year, during which process we learned that CBG, and to a lesser extent CBD, either alone or also in certain combinations, if we're mixing the two cannabinoids, that these compounds are actually more effective than vitamin C at protecting skin from the aging effects of UV exposure and inflammation. Now, this is a really exciting finding for two reasons. The first of which is that when we think about what consumers are currently using to help address signs of skin aging, and we realize that they're using ingredients like retinoids or exfoliating acids, the problem with those ingredients is that they do cause irritation to the skin. Fortunately, with CBG or with CBD, that's not an issue, thanks to the anti-inflammatory properties of these interesting compounds. The other reason why this result was so interesting is because looking at consumer data, it's clear that anti-aging is consistently ranked as a top-line concern among skincare consumers worldwide. And so really, these results don't just tell us that cannabinoids present a new class of anti-aging ingredients, but also that these ingredients can solve real problems that actually matter to consumers. There is a demand for these kinds of solutions and these kinds of ingredients. Now, apart from testing on the ingredient level or the cannabinoid level, we also conduct a series of tests on our finished products. The main reason why we do this is because finished product testing gives us an opportunity to validate or to confirm some of the results that we see on the ingredient level and make sure that those benefits or those properties not only exist, but more importantly, that we've formulated the product in such a way that allows those properties to be carried through the formula and actually be perceived by benefits as benefits from the consumer. So from the testing that we've done to date on our rejuvenating face serum and our nourishing face oil, we have seen that indeed these CBG-based formulas are effective for helping to skin to look younger, more youthful, preventing those signs of aging that Anna mentioned. These formulas are also effective for soothing skin and for keeping skin blemish-free. And all of those benefits tie back to the three core properties of cannabinoids, which again are the anti-inflammatory, antioxidant, and antibacterial properties. So collectively with these results, we're able to not only offer very unique formulas, but we're also able to make unique claims. And importantly, these claims are substantiated by sound and defendable research. We've really invested in understanding how cannabinoids work, because with that understanding, we're able to tailor our skincare formulas to address specific and real consumer needs. Now, perhaps the most exciting piece of all of this, everything that we've learned over the last few years about cannabinoids, is that the benefits of cannabinoids extend well beyond skincare. And this brings us to our third and final insight of the day. We've heard a lot about CBD over the last few years, which as an anti-inflammatory compound has become fairly popular with athletes and with gym goers as a solution for reducing inflammation or managing pain and reducing their recovery time after physical activity. What we wanted to understand was, how do other cannabinoids compare to CBD? And when we think about inflammation and we realize it's a fairly complex process that can be addressed through different mechanisms, we also wanted to understand if there's really different avenues through which these cannabinoids can exert their properties to help with inflammation. So we conducted a study involving 4 cannabinoids, and we looked at the ability of these cannabinoids to inhibit an enzyme called COX-2. We picked COX-2 because it's a very well-established pharmacological target for other anti-inflammatory compounds like diclofenac, which is the active ingredient in Voltarol, and ibuprofen also works at COX-2. What we saw in this study was, first and foremost, that CBD actually had no meaningful activity at COX-2, and this is a finding that aligns with other research and also supports our current understanding of how CBD works as an anti-inflammatory, which primarily seems to be through direct inhibition of something called pro-inflammatory cytokines. Interestingly, we saw that CBG, and even more so CBGA, did display activity at COX-2, and the level of activity was comparable to that reported for ibuprofen. What these results indicate is that not only do cannabinoids possess different mechanisms of anti-inflammatory action, but from a formulation standpoint, if we now combine some of these cannabinoids into a single formula, we may have a solution that can address inflammation from different angles. And that is a learning that we are applying to some of our ongoing development work as we prepare to launch our Function Better range next year. Another area of research that we've invested in is focused on understanding more about the antibacterial properties of cannabinoids. What we saw in this study was that for CBG specifically, apart from being able to also prevent the growth of blemish-causing bacteria, as we discussed previously, CBG can also inhibit the growth of odor-causing bacteria. The last area of research that I'll mention has to do with understanding how different formulas deliver CBD into the skin. CBD delivery, which can also be called permeation or absorption, is a very important factor to consider when trying to predict or understand how a product will work. Because if you're applying something to your skin and most of the CBD in that product or the CBG in that product is getting stuck in the outermost layer of your skin, which is called the stratum corneum, and really acts as a barrier to keep things out, then it's unreasonable to expect that the product will provide any meaningful efficacy by way of anti-inflammatory benefits. What we're seeing in this research is that depending on how you formulate a product, there are real differences in how much CBD actually gets delivered into the skin. And this is yet another example of why it's important to not just understand how the ingredients work themselves, but to also characterize and study the functioning and the performance of the finished product as well. And this is a core part of what we're doing to keep our promise of delivering products that are science-backed and efficacy-led. So with that, and with those insights, I hope they were not just interesting, but that they also convey to you, as they have to us, that cannabinoids are not only interesting compounds, but they also possess a very compelling range of properties that are extremely well aligned for helping us as consumers manage our health and our wellness, which I think over the last few years is something that we've all gained more of an appreciation for. I think our perspective on health and wellness and even sustainability has changed as we become more mindful about what we do, what we put in our body or on our body, and the impact that we have on the world around us. And on those fronts, lab-made cannabinoids can really answer a lot of the questions that we have and meet the needs that us and many other consumers around the world have. So with that, I thank you for your time, and I'll turn things back over to Nick to kick off our Q&A. Thank you.
Anna and Alexia, thank you both so very much. And there are lots of questions coming in. I guess I should start though by saying what we won't be talking about tonight, and that's any specific numbers, including those around the revenue base of the business. Cellular Goods have their results in late May, and I'm afraid you'll have to wait until then to hear on those specific numbers. It would be wrong of us to discuss those this evening. But notwithstanding that, there's a lot that we can talk about, and the questions split into a number of different topics. There's quite a lot around marketing and its efficacy. So why don't we start with the launch of the outdoor marketing campaign, how it's performed, how dynamic the campaign is, and how you think about managing marketing expenditure across different channels, for example, online, performance marketing, etc. And maybe, Anna, you're presumably the best person to take that one.
Yes, I'm happy to take it. Thank you, Nick. So the marketing campaign had several avenues, and it was all around that consumer purchase funnel that I shared with you. At the top layer for awareness, we had the very visible marketing effort with our, we are still actually on more than 100 different sites across London, Manchester. Also, we have boards and posters in premium gyms. And this is not just a random outdoor campaign. We have done substantial analysis to understand who our key target audience is. We used YouGov data to profile them, to understand where they live, what their habits are, media consumption profile, what they read, where they go, what they look at, how to influence them. And that's how we pick those sites to advertise. We also have a separate effort that went to collaborate with Evening Standard, their magazine called ES, and also Condé Nast and Hearst. Both are very Hearst and Condé Nast. They are publishing houses that publish very famous beauty titles such as Vogue, GQ, Men's Health, Harper's Bazaar, Elle, Red, many. So we signed an agreement with them to have a multi-faceted collaboration across various titles, and them endorsing our products, trialing our products, and that will continue throughout the year. The reason we pick them because they are big opinion leaders, and also because they have almost like cult followers. So we also know from that profiling of the customers I mentioned before that these influencers are quite important in terms of opinion leaders for them. So that all works with the campaign, the outdoor campaign, the premium gyms and the publishing houses kind of coming together to persuade them to move from awareness into purchase. We have also now produced samples, and I'm pleased to say that to date we have distributed 10,000 samples, and we will continue to do that. Samples are actually quite important because if you think about it, yes, it's awareness, but more so you kind of skip a few stages. You go straight into consideration with them, especially if people like the benefit of the product when they try it. So we intend to distribute even more samples throughout the year. And in fact, for every single launch in skincare, we are now putting samples as one of the main marketing tools moving forward. Samples were also important because they allowed us to expand our database. We have before we launched, we had the database of our retail investors. So some of you guys are probably on our database. You expressed interest to receive news from our brand. After we launched, we started to focus to expand our database further. I can't tell you exactly how many people we have on the database right now, but I can tell you that it quadrupled from the time when we launched. And now the next step for us is, of course, to make sure that we communicate with people on the database, and this is something we intend to execute in the nearest future. What else? Influencers, yes, loads of influencers we engaged with. There've been a healthy stream of social media content generated from micro influencers to some of the more notable ones, and it's unfortunate what happened in the last 3 weeks, because some of them had to stop, not to be targeted because of the controversy with the FSA. But once this all comes down, you can expect that they will ramp up. Yeah, we are pleased with that. Like I said, we're going to measure the effectiveness and the outcome in numerical way in a couple of months, when most of the efforts calm down. And that will allow us to build on the learnings from this campaign to take them forward for September, October, November, probably October, November, when we expect to be back on air to advertise again.
Thank you. Can I just double click on the point that you made about the database, and we had a specific question from the floor around how you market to repeat customers on your database, and it sounds as though that the priority thus far has been around gaining new customers rather than monetizing the existing. Is that a fair reflection, and what are your plans from here?
Is that from Paul by any chance? Hello, Paul. Yeah, I mean, I think I can understand why Paul would have that impression. I wouldn't say necessarily that we have been ignoring repeat purchases. I think for a very young brand that's just starting, trial is paramount. And yes, we have been prioritizing trial. Without trial, there is no repeat purchase. It's true, however, that we had the database. The database, especially with retail investors, have been on the database from December. We had not been proactively marketing to them with discounts or coupons to entice them to repeat. It's not only because we didn't launch this ECRM program yet, it's actually also because of the strategic reasons. As a newly starting premium brand, we're very reluctant to go into heavy discounting or into any actually form of discounting. It's not a healthy practice to launch for the first time and then get consumers enticed with a discount. You would want them actually to want you to so much that they buy you. They want consumers to buy you not because there is a discount, but because you're so amazing. And so it's a fine balance. But yeah, I think yes, trial is still very important. It will be important for us, but repeat purchase is going to be increasingly important. The database is a golden mine for us, and we will exploit it definitely. Yeah, so we are working on it.
Let me ask you one more, which is directly linked to this topic, and then I'll pivot to Alexia. But the question, I guess, is leads nicely from what you were saying about price points and how in this industry it is possible to determine the correct price point. How do you think about profitability, I guess, with a higher price versus effective market size and reaching a larger audience with a lower price? How do you trade that off commercially?
It's a great question. I think there is no exact science. There is enough of the science to help sort of qualify your way into it. But for a startup, that science is not accessible. So big companies would do research called price elasticity analysis, but they also take 5 years to launch their products. So that's not something we can entertain to do. So for us, I think the main principles are, do you have a unique product with a unique benefit? And we believe we do. We are the only ones in the UK with amazing proprietary technology. In fact, actually, just yesterday, we also filed for cannabinoid skin brightening complex. So we are unique. We are quite different. And yeah, we should charge for it as the first movers. I think we should not be ashamed of that. I think also if you look in the marketplace following the pandemic, there have been a lot of the price increases from some of the even like mid-tier players. So the price points we're playing at right now, while premium, they're not as premium as one could think about just even 1 year ago, to be honest. And we need to plan ahead. Launching at premium also allows us to have enough flex in our P&L to be able to invest into listings in different customers, because that doesn't come for free. So distribution is not free, right? You need to share your margin with the retailers. I think the decision to launch at premium is right, especially considering our unique benefit and unique ingredient and unique positioning. And I think what we see also from the customers, the ones we have, they're loving us, and price point is not a barrier.
Great, thank you. That's very clear indeed. Let me go to Alexia, if I could, because we have a question on, I guess, what it means to make statements around the clinical provenance of some of these products. How has that been vindicated? What are the trials? What are the number of trials? How have they been undertaken? And I guess that underlying this is building confidence in the process and in the results that you've generated.
Sure. Yeah, great question. So the area of clinical research and claim substantiation is a really interesting space, and it also is a very different space depending on the market vertical that we're looking at. So in the case of skincare, there's sort of a few different tiers when it comes to research and also claim substantiation, which usually go hand in hand for the most part, because if you want to make a claim, you need to be able to back that up with some degree of research and scientific evidence. I think with us being in the cannabinoid space and this being first and foremost a new industry, but then also adding on this other layer of CBG being a new ingredient, the kind of research that we're undertaking is a little bit different than what most brands are doing, because apart from trying to figure out if the product's actually working in the way that we intended it to, there's all of this other research that we need to kind of do before that to really understand, again, what CBG in and of itself does and how it works when applied to skin, when ingested, when used for benefit A versus X. So there's a lot of questions that we're trying to answer. But going back to the claims process and the clinical process, like I mentioned, there's a few different tiers when it comes to substantiating a claim. The most basic tier is looking at an ingredient, looking at the information either in the public domain, so that could be in peer-reviewed literature as an example, or looking at the information that's been provided by the ingredient manufacturer, and essentially trying to make a connection between having that ingredient in your product and then that ingredient providing a benefit in the finished formula. So as an example, glycerin is widely used in many skincare formulas. It's well known that glycerin acts as a humectant, so it helps keep moisture in the skin. Brands that formulate with glycerin in the product are able to call out that ingredient and make a claim related to hydration because of glycerin in the product, even if they're not necessarily doing specific testing to assess if that product does indeed help with hydration. So that's kind of the lowest tier, and really it's guided on scientific evidence and ensuring that the amount or the inclusion level of an ingredient you have in your product is supported by the available evidence either from the public domain or again from the ingredient manufacturer. So that's usually where a lot of brands start. We kind of take things a step further and we conduct a series of in vivo tests. So those are tests done on human subjects, on human volunteers. And those tests include everything from patch testing, where we look at the tolerability and the safety of a formula. And normally we do this on sensitive skin to make sure that our formulas are tolerated by many consumers. We know that, again, because of things like retinoids and exfoliating acids, even vitamin C, the constant messaging consumers are getting to exfoliate 5 times a week, use the highest potency possible of retinoids, et cetera, that there's a lot of damage to our skin barriers occurring. And so we're trying to ensure that via this testing on subjects with sensitive skin, our products are not only well tolerated, but that again, we're helping to bring forward those anti-inflammatory benefits of CBG and CBD. Apart from patch testing, we also are involved in what's called user trial testing. So that's where we recruit over 100 subjects And there's inclusion and exclusion criteria that we set so that we can make sure we're really looking at the exact population that we're interested in really creating this product for. And we'll provide these participants with products. There's a series of questions that they have to answer over the course of a few weeks. And through that process, we gain real consumer feedback on how the product worked for them, what they liked, what they didn't like. The most interesting part actually of those studies is the report we get at the end, because there's always some open text questions, and seeing the feedback that we're getting from our participants who don't know what they're trying, by the way. It's kind of a blind assessment. The feedback on the whole has been absolutely incredible through those user trial studies. So that's a good way of, again, getting that kind of real feedback. And it's sort of, I'd say, the second or third tier, if we're saying patch testing is second and then user trial is third. And then apart from that, the last and sort of final tier of research that we're involved in, which is also the most expensive tier of research, has to do with more quantitative assessments. So that's where there's a smaller number of subjects recruited. They go to a clinic, the product's applied to their skin, and then there's all sorts of measurements taken to assess or to actually quantify the effect of a product on hydration, on redness, on elasticity, on anti-aging parameters, on hyperpigmentation. There's many things we can do in clinic, and this sort of gives us a complete picture of how the product itself is performing. But again, a lot of this research can't be informed properly unless we understand what's happening at the ingredient level. And that's why we've really invested in conducting numerous tests on CBG and CBD and a few other cannabinoids to understand more about their properties, their benefits, and how they work when applied to human skin. Because something that might take place in a beaker or a petri dish won't necessarily carry over into real life. And some of that research, as Anna mentioned, formed the basis for the patent that we filed recently, which looked at some of the skin brightening effects of CBG. The last thing I want to mention on kind of the research and the claims front is something that I actually don't know how well this is known by consumers, but there's actually a lot of sort of red tape around how we speak about a product and what we can say about a product when it comes to skincare specifically, and actually even supplements. I can give you a few examples. For both of those verticals, words like pain or inflammation, even sleep or anxiety, all words that we associate or have heard of in the same sentence with CBD, technically those words are not supposed to be used on packaging, let's say for a product. So you may have noticed that there's many CBD muscle creams or topicals in market, and they'll be called CBD pain relief cream. That's actually not a compliant name for a topical product. Pain, inflammation, sleep, anxiety, those all have medical connotations, and there's a clean delineation from a regulatory standpoint on what kind of language is allowed for different markets. So with us being listed, of course, compliance is very important, and we're trying to stay on the right side of the line. But that's why, from a kind of communication standpoint, and this goes back to Anna's comment on education as well, we are being very cognizant and conscious of how we're speaking about the products, because we want to be accurate from a scientific standpoint, but we also want to be compliant from a regulatory perspective as well.
That's helpful, Alexia. Thank you. And there's one more which I think links nicely to you, which is around, is it your understanding of the cannabinoid which is proprietary, or is it the exclusive sourcing that you can undertake? Is it the process of biosynthesis? What is it that is unique to what Cellular Goods is producing?
But so I think for the most part, it's our understanding of the cannabinoids, because again, we're involved in sort of first of kind research to advance our understanding of how CBG works, how CBD works, the safety, the efficacy, the mechanisms of action. Undertaking that kind of research does require some specialized knowledge. Unfortunately, the team that we have at Cellular Goods does have the knowledge and the experience from all of our past lives to engage in those kind of research endeavors. And really with that understanding, we're then able to approach our development activities and approach our commercial activities with a much clearer understanding of what exactly cannabinoids can do and what they can't do. There's many products out there in market that, when we look at them, it's sort of clear that someone just decided to put CBD into this formula because they know it's a trendy ingredient. They hope it might help move more inventory. But for us, we're taking a much more intentional and thought out approach to what we're doing. And like Anna said, really trying to create real value and address gaps in the market that exist today. The biosynthesis itself, we're a first mover, like Anna mentioned as well. So I think that has given us an advantage, but I hope that more brands will, as they become more educated on the benefits of biosynthesis, both in terms of sustainability, but also in terms of the quality of the ingredients that are produced via that production technology. I hope this becomes more commonplace because it can really address many of the gaps that we're seeing currently on the basis of product quality, safety, efficacy, and compliance.
But shall we mention also, just for people to understand on this seminar, that the barriers to entry into CBG, especially lab-made, any CBG, are quite high right now. The cost of this ingredient is quite high. So it's going to be challenging for anyone to produce a product that's going to be cheaper than ours. It's going to be as efficacious and, highly distributed. I would say close to impossible. It may happen in the future, but it will take a few years for the industry to get there. But the cost of the ingredient is quite high.
That's interesting. I'm very conscious of your time and the time of our listeners too, but I'd just like to go, Anna, back to you for one broad topic, which is around product distribution. And I'll try and summarize a couple of the questions, which are around how important are physical retail channels? What would your ideal physical distribution platform look like? And are the economics of physical sales very different from online? There you go. I've tried to put 3 in 1 there.
So I would say physical, I wouldn't necessarily differentiate physical or online. I think consumers are very connected these days. I think what's important is to be present in those sales channels where our customers are used to shopping. And why is this important? Because again, going back to that consumer funnel from awareness to purchase, the second biggest source of awareness outside of advertising is actually a shelf, be it an online shelf or a bricks and mortar shelf. So if you would like to accelerate the turnover gain, you must be present in more than one sales channel. And so that's like a broad question answered. In terms of specifically bricks and mortar, I personally tend to think it's quite important, but it's not critical for the turnover. I think it's important to create that brand experience. What physical retail allows you to do is to have that place where the customer can go and experience the brand, perhaps talk to the sales consultant, check the packaging, maybe try the product there. It creates that brand experience that's so very important. It doesn't necessarily have to generate a lot of sales, but I think as an avenue for the brand presence, it's important on the strategic level for me. And then from the economic standpoint, they're all different. Of course, your own sales channel is always going to be the most profitable because you own, effectively, you're vertically integrated, right? So you're not sharing the margin with anybody else. But then equally, you're not going to be able to ever achieve the ambition we have if you're only going to sell in your own e-com. And so us being priced at the level we are, I think we have been very strategic to allow ourselves the space to engage with select partners in a profitable way.
Great. Anna, Alexia, let's pause there. Let me thank you once again and thank our audience too. Again, I'm sorry that we can't dive into some of the questions that you've had about financials. You'll be hearing from Cellular Goods again at the end of May with their interim results, when these things will be very, very visible. But thank you all for taking part. and we look forward to speaking to you again in the future. Thank you.